Hello, my name is Andrew, and today we're doing a first impression review of the all-new Vivobarefoot SENSUS YIN slide. So these are a lightweight zero-drop Birkenstock style sandal with a wide toe box that's kind of squared off on the side and then tapered a little bit on the outside. But across the forefoot, they are pretty roomy, so they'll fit anyone with medium width feet or wide feet, but probably not extra wide. Like for me, with medium width feet, I can still wiggle around in there, and I've got about a finger's room on the side. But yeah, the footbed is fully leather, so it feels really nice to wear barefoot. And it's also got a little bit of texture to help your feet grip so you're not sliding around in there. Although it doesn't have the Birkenstock type ridges in there, which has pros and cons because it does give your toes something to hold on to. But then if your toes don't line up in the right place, it can feel really uncomfortable. That said, as someone who used to wear Birkenstocks, I kind of like that Vivo went with Velcro instead of the belt holes because this allows you more customization. You can make teeny tiny little changes depending on how thick of socks you're wearing, or maybe if your feet change over time. Whereas with Birkenstock, you can add extra holes, but once you put them in there, you can't really add more in between, so you're sort of stuck. Anyways, you've also got Velcro adjustment up on the top for the higher strap, and I found it felt good to have the higher one a little bit more snug, and then the front one a little bit more loose, because the front is where your feet kind of bend, you know? But yeah, both straps are soft suede, and like all leather, they'll get softer the more you use them. And then one more thing about the upper, you can open the straps up quite a lot, so if you have higher volume feet or wider feet, the Yin is actually pretty accommodating. Honestly, this type of open sandal wouldn't be my first pick for going on longer walks, but it is curved in the back, which prevents your heel from slipping out there. And in terms of the sole, it's 3.3 millimeters, so actually pretty much the same thing as the Vivobarefoot SENSUS, but there's a little bit more structure because of how they've added these two layers together with the leather footbed and then the rubber sole. But for sandals, you do need some structure, otherwise the upper just gets too floppy. And otherwise, it's very similar to the SENSUS. You've got some minimal tread here, as well as a bit more denseness around the outside for wear resistance when you're walking on pavement. And because of the extra layer here, I think that they can actually stand up to a little bit of gravel, more so than the SENSUS, which is just super, super thin. And the other thing I love about the leather is that it can work for multiple temperatures. Like I was out at about 30 degrees walking this morning, and with a couple layers of socks and that leather footbed, my feet were perfectly warm. But then summer leather's also really nice for temperature regulation, and it smells better than synthetic sandals. Also, like the name suggests, the SENSUS YIN slide is really nice for just like sliding on in the house, using it as a slipper. Although because it's designed for both indoor and outdoor use, it doesn't have quite as much flexibility as like a pure wool slipper. If you want a Birkenstock style barefoot sandal for longer walks, this is the Mukishoes Nazare. Also has a wide toe box, pretty similar to the Yin, but with a suede footbed instead of regular leather, which feels a little bit softer but can get dirty if you have really sweaty feet. Also, the straps are slightly softer than on the Yin, but there's no structure to them, so it can feel a little bit flappy if you don't tighten them down. And obviously that can also make them hard to slip onto because the straps are up like this, whereas with the SENSUS, you can easily slide them on hands-free. That said, it does have a heel strap, which makes it more useful for going on longer walks. And ironically, even though the sole is thicker at 9 millimeters, it's actually more flexible than the SENSUS, just because there's no structure on the side to limit it. But it does feel like a heavier sole, so the Yin is definitely the more minimalist of the two. Although I will say, if you need to do a little bit of off-roading, the sole on the Nazare is the better option. Also, if you want a little bit more padding, this is the Softstar Camino, which has a wide toe box but does taper quite a bit at the front. Although Softstar may add a primal extra wide version of the Camino at some point, so that's always worth checking out. They've also got a thinner version of the Camino, although this is probably the only time you'll hear me say I actually like the thicker version better. I think the thinner one just feels too hard, you know? Whereas the thicker one just has some nice padding on top. Although I think both sandals look great. They have your classic Birkenstock style straps up top with the heel strap for longer walks and even hiking. And although the sole is kind of outside of barefoot range at around 15 millimeters with a little more stiffness, a lot of that is made up of the top padding and the midsole foam. So really there's only about 6 millimeters of rubber. It's also got a Vibram tread. This is a great hybrid one because it's smooth enough for roads, but then grippy enough to even do some hiking with. And definitely the most durable out of the three. And then finally, for cold weather, this is what I'm literally wearing right now. It's the Vivobarefoot Wavy Mule with a chunky suede upper and a stitched sole, which is always great, as well as a buckle, which you can wear up if you just want to slip into it hands-free, or around your heel if you want to go on longer walks. Inside, you've got a leather footbed and some natural tensile blend insulation, which is a nice combo because it's kind of thick on top, but then thin on the bottom, which creates a better temperature range you're not only wearing in cold weather. For the sole, it's 4 millimeters, and there's some really good flexibility. It doesn't feel quite as limited as the SENSUS sandal, so it's really great to use indoors, but there's also some density around the outside of the sole if you need to go on roads or even some light gravel. Alright, so that's my first impression review of the Vivobarefoot SENSUS YIN slide, but if you'd like to support the channel, you can shop with the referral links down below, browse and filter more products with the shoe finder tool at my website barefootwear.org, or watch my zero drop transition video to learn more about barefooting. Finally, if you have a question about the Vivobarefoot SENSUS YIN slide or about barefoot shoes in general, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Peace.